Okay, got it. Yeah. Right, got it. Oh God, I can see myself in big.
Press gallery in the upper right hand. Press view.
Now I'm the same as all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no different. Right. So we are continuing with this wonderful book written by His Holiness the 14th, not written by, but I mean compiled by Dagyab Rinpoche, containing the teachings of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Lovely photographs out there. You know, he's very good for photographs, His Holiness. You know, his eye. When you look at His Holiness, don't look at his mouth, look at his eyes. It's all there. It's in his eyes, only you can't see it. But anyway, that's where you look, you know. And he himself says you can, you know, what are they called? The windows to the soul, aren't they? If you want to know what a person's like, look at their eyes. Don't look at this and these sort of big celebrity teeth. I always, you know, these celebrities, and you divide their face into two. Down here is, and here, this is where you need to look. And he has got these most amazing eyes. Yeah. Anyway, so I think we were on the section called religion. My tea will not get cold. I think we've done the first section. Now the second chapter is religion. As I say, these chapters are a little bit of a hodgepodge of, you know, they're not really always coherent. But I mean, I'm is one of the His Holiness's goals is interfaith harmony between the various religions of the world. And this is on page 82. If you have the book, I'll just read. I'm not going to read much because you can see where we are. Look, you know, we've only done that bit. So I just read. The different religious traditions of the world preach different tenets and have different methods for putting these into practice. What is asserted by one will not necessarily be accepted by another. There are significant differences, many of which are necessary. They arose at different times in different places for people of different dispositions. So His Holiness's idea of religion is not that they were sort of pursued or started up by one person who decided this is how it is, and I'm going to tell you how it is, and this is the truth and the only truth. No, they arose in dependence upon the people's needs at the time, which is in tune with, of course, the theory of dependent arising that, you know, as I said last week, even His Holiness says, even in Buddhism, the tenets of Buddhism, the good and the bad, arise mainly in dependence on what causes happiness and suffering for society. You know, so you cannot separate religious doctrine and tenets from the society. And this is, I think, maybe something that has gone wrong with religion these days, is that some of the doctrines and the tenets don't seem to have much to do with the needs of the people. But His Holiness is clearly saying they arose at different times in different places for people of different dispositions. So I think it's very important that in the Buddhist tradition too, different vehicles and tenets arose because of the varying types and dispositions of disciples. If we examine the purpose of these views or what they are establishing, we see they are united in emphasizing kindness and compassion. This shows that once you have found faith in a particular religious tradition, you should put into practice the teachings found in its literature. And then jumping a paragraph, it's not enough just to read the literature of other religious traditions. We must engage in exchanges and discussions with practitioners of other religions in order to fully appreciate the qualities of these traditions. Doing so will increase our respect for them. There is great benefit in developing such a pure perception of other customs, cultures, and particularly religions through worthwhile and meaningful exchange. I mean, because that is what he does. He goes out of his way, and you know, and he often goes out of his way to especially with the Islamic with Islam, which of course is, you know, has these days has produced some problematic issues, and you know, he will even goes out of his way to redefine the definition of jihad, or is it fatwa? Jihad. He says jihad is a struggle not against other people, but against the own inner anger, your own inner sort of your own inner enemies of desire and anger and so forth. So he redefined. I don't think he redefines it purely on his own. There's some reference he found somewhere where he was able to take that and explain jihad in a totally non-violent way, and this is what he does. He talks about the pure vision. So we should have a we should have a somewhere pure vision, a pure perception of other customs. Yeah, so which is quite radical, because even in ancient Tibet wasn't always like that. Even amongst the Buddhist traditions, that they were not always united in seeing the best in each other, and of course in India too, and in the past, and even to some degree today, there is he always talks about, you have Shia is Muslims, Shia Islam, Sunni Islam, Iran Shia, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Sunni. They are the same religion, and yet they're at each other's throats. The recent attack by Iran on Pakistan, and then retaliation from Pakistan on Iran, that's Shia Sunni, and I think the divide between Shia and Sunni occurred sometime after Muhammad, I think, mainly due to someone's father-in-law or some relation that branched off anyway. And of course, the same with Protestant and Catholic in Ireland, where just across the water from here, it's the same kind of thing. It's almost a tendency to try and see the bad in the other, in the eyes of the Protestants, the Catholics, they call them papists, devil, and there's no attempt to see the good. So it's not enough just to read the literature of other religious traditions. We should engage in exchanges and discussions, and which he does. He does. He's done a lot of that, and he doesn't. If he sits with a Christian, he doesn't start sort of debating the existence of God and saying, well, it's impossible. God cannot possibly exist because of da, 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 da. He doesn't do that, even though, of course, in his own practice, he rejects the existence of a creator God. He doesn't do that when he meets these people, because what's the point? They're not going to believe you. There's only two possible results. Either they will sort of they will totally reject what you say, or you will destroy their faith, both of which are negative. So he always looks for the good. On page 84, in this changing modern world, progressive attempts to promote non-sectarian religious views are worthy. Okay, so he doesn't sort of decry people who are trying to sort of weaken or dilute the power of religion. Not at all. Not at all. He says they are worthy. Progressive attempts to promote non-sectarian religious views religious are worthy. Oh yeah, sorry. There are those who are making systematic efforts towards eradicating religious traditions, but there remain huge numbers of people with faith in their particular religion. Religious attitudes can even be seen in regimes that do not otherwise accept religion. This shows the power of religion. We say England, the United Kingdom, is a Christian country, but really it's hard to say that those in power or those in political power are practicing Christians. But we still say it's a Christian country, and everything is operates under that Christian sort of flag. When you get married in church, you are married in the sight of God, and because in promises that you vows marriage vows that you make in the sight of God are far more powerful than if you just make them to each other. I mean, this is still the belief, right? And even, I'm sure there are many people who get married in church who are not particularly Christian, but they do it. And the power of legacy, maybe it's just the legacy or the power, I don't know. But the Queen, or no, she's gone. The King, he's the head of the Anglican Church. He is the supreme. In England, church and state are separate, but nevertheless, you find God everywhere. If you search all the rituals, it's always there. Yeah. There is no respect for national boundaries within religious traditions. If any kind of religion is beneficial to any group of people, it is perfectly acceptable to make use of it and practice it. For people to choose the religious practice they are attracted to is very important. However, once a religious path is chosen, it is not necessary to cast out other traditions from one's community with the excuse that they can no longer be accepted. Instead, with cordiality and friendliness, we should allow other religious followers to remain beside us. Again, great advice. Huh? There are some temples and some traditions that you cannot enter unless you are a member of that religion. I think some Hindu, you can't go in unless you are a Hindu. And why not? It's fortunately, Buddhist, and even here, there are churches here. Unfortunately, most churches these days are locked, but every so often you'll find one that's open. And it's open 24 hours. You can go in and no one's there. Now there's one just here, just a little way up the road I went to the other day, and it's tiny little thing, little chapel, one room, slightly dilapidated and downtrodden a bit, built in 1868. And I just walked in, and it's lovely. It's so quiet and peaceful in there. And sometimes I go in church and I do my my mantras, my sort of my practices, because it's a beautiful place to do it. I don't see any contradiction. Why not? His Holiness once, when he goes into churches, I was with Jadu Rinpoche in Israel when we visited Jerusalem, and we went to the on the mount, that what's it called, this temple on the mount, and he put his hands together and said, this is Jesus was a great man. He was like a bodhisattva. And so we should always allow other religions to have their place beside us. I think it's important. A cause of religious dissension in the world is the notion of there being one single faith, one true religion, one truth only, one goal above all others. It is difficult to say that these notions can be accepted. From the perspective of a single individual, it is important that these concepts are applied to their own particular religion. Even on the basis of being a Buddhist, it is taught that we should go for refuge to the Buddhist teachings without acknowledging any other refuge. Similarly, just as it is necessary for a Buddhist to have single-pointed faith in the Buddhist doctrine, followers of other traditions should have a similar single-pointed faith in their own religion. So there's no contradiction between a Buddhist going for refuge and believing that there is no other refuge other than the three jewels, and at the same time accepting the necessity and the benefit and having the respect for other religions and seeing how they are necessary and beneficial to community. He doesn't see any contradiction there. And later on, I think he talks about that, about the difference between faith and respect. So, however, to use that as a reason, i.e., my religion is the best. The Buddha is the only one who taught emptiness. No other religion teaches emptiness. Therefore, the Buddha is the best, and I will criticize any other religion. That's not right. To use that as a reason to criticize other religions is very wrong. Each follower should have strong faith in their own tradition, while at the same time accepting the existence of other religions in the community and respecting them as an essential part of humanity, you know. So yeah, that's very important, you know. When I left India in 1984, His Holiness asked me, what are you going to do? In those days, you could go and see him quite easily. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, actually, I've been asked to become a translator at the Manjusri Institute in England. This was the institute that was run by Cousin Gyatso, who, of course, promoted the New Kadampa tradition and all the Shukden stuff. But this is slightly before all it erupted. I said, I'm going to be a translator. He said, oh, you don't want to do that. He said, you don't want to do that. You know, he said, problem with the Westerners, he said, that they go to these Dharma centers and they put on one of these, and then they go a bit strange. So he said, and he said to me, be anonymous. That's what he said. Be anonymous. Don't tell people you're Buddhist. Don't announce it. Get a job, work hard. Of course, if people ask you, you tell them, but don't go out and say, I'm a Buddhist to them. And I think that is good advice. In other words, don't proselytize. Don't go like this. You know. Do you have Jehovah's Witnesses in America? Oh yeah. Do they knock on the door and try and convert you? Oh, we have them here, and sometimes they stand on the street and they sort of smile at you as you walk by with a kind of "come here," but they're very sweet. And sometimes they knock on the door, but I don't see any point in discussing with them because they're very strong about their views, and yeah, good luck to them. They're not universally liked in this country. They're kind of ridiculed and looked down upon because they are sort of seen as dogmatically rigid and often without humor. I don't think that's true, but they aren't really. Sometimes they may be their worst. They are their worst enemy. I don't know, but they have a mission in life because Jesus said, "Go forth and preach the word," and so off they go. And the Dalai Lama is very against that. You know, he says that absolutely you should never go. And he told us that once there was a group of missionaries in Mongolia, and they were trying Christian missionaries. They were trying to convert the Mongolians, and he said, but and every time they converted, they gave them $50. So he said these Mongolians are very clever because many of them were converted many times. They got $50 every time they got, you know? So they ended up becoming quite wealthy. but so yeah. Okay, okay, good. It is harmful and outdated to seek to promote a religion with the attitude that it is the sole religion and the sole truth, and to proclaim that others must follow this line. In the past, societies did not have close mutual relationships, and they lived in their own fairly isolated localities in the world. In such environments, it was perfectly acceptable to promote old religious traditions. In Tibet, too, it was acceptable to promote Buddhism alone. However, these days, nations are linked to each other and travel between them is so much easier. The old ways have been completely transformed. Yes, we can't live any longer in the way that when you read the scriptures, you know, the texts and written by Tibetans or Indians, you know, 16th century, 17th century, of course, that attitude was there. You know, that the Buddhas in Tibetan Buddhists are called Nangba, which means insiders, inside, and non-Buddhists are called outsiders, right? I suspect that has got nothing to do with sectarianism, but it just means that you are inside the Buddhist, realm. But there is you know, and then the outsiders, the non-Buddhists, are quite clearly differentiated from Buddhists, you know, and because Tibet was a Buddhist country, I think there was a smattering of Muslims, but they were relegated to sort of menial jobs. I don't think they had, but you know, Tibet was a purely Buddhist country, and so whereas India, of course, had quite a few religions. So like that. The various views and philosophies of religious traditions cannot be arbitrarily divided up into good and bad. This is important. Good should be understood as that which is beneficial. Oh yeah, that's good. If it's beneficial, it's good. If it's not beneficial, it's bad. It's not sort of because someone came down a mountain and said, this is how it is. Not like that. No. Beneficial and non-beneficial should be understood as that which is fitting, not fitting, appropriate and inappropriate. Whenever discussions come up on the topic of good and bad religions, I always say I cannot make judgments. Yeah. So there you go. You know, we are in this world day and age, we say it's perfectly acceptable to criticize religions. It's perfectly acceptable because we believe in a democratic view of being able to express our beliefs about any political system, any religious system. We have that, don't we? It's perfectly acceptable to, and we do, you know, we do. We people criticize other religions. But one has to ask oneself if the criticism is based upon a universal sense of responsibility of wanting everyone to sort of benefit, or whether it's just a kind of argumentative polemic style that certain people have. They like to argue. I'm a bit like that. I like to argue, but it's not always good. But anyway, so I cannot make judgments. Religion is like medicine. Medicine must benefit the patient. Sometimes an illness can be treated with one small pill. Other illnesses require a course of expensive medication. Therefore, whatever medicine is beneficial for a specific illness, that is the medicine considered to be the best in that situation. Medicine is not determined to be good or bad by way of its price or popular opinion. The dispositions of human beings are varied, and whatever religious practice is suitable for a given individual is best for that person. For me, someone like me, Buddhism is the most suitable and therefore the best religious practice, but I never believe that it is the best for everyone. Yes, it is, isn't it? I mean, you know, we all know that. If you speak with others, people, I'm sure you do, about your Buddhist belief, faith, some accept it and some just sort of shun it. So there we are. There are different kinds of religious faith. In Buddhism, for example, the proper kind of faith is not blind faith, but faith based on intelligence. The Buddhist way to understand something is through an investigation of its whole structure, regardless of how complex it is. After a minimum of 1 or 2 years of detailed discussion, eradication of doubt, serious study, if one gains an understanding of these vast tenets of Buddhism, then when the qualities of the Buddha are being explained, it will be possible to see how such an inconceivable state can be developed in one's own being. Yeah, this is important because when we hear the qualities of the Buddha, we hear this amazing enlightened mind has the ability to manifest in any form, anywhere, instantly, at any time. That when the Buddha speaks, he speaks in whatever language he speaks can be understood by people of different languages at the same time. And we think, well, you know, that's impossible. You know, how is it possible in these things? And I think sometimes that the tendency to sort of elevate, you know, the Buddha or God or whatever, without explaining that the Buddha is actually the result of aeons of practice, or at least in Tantra, a few lives of practice, and that it is a evolution of the human mind. If you don't understand that, then Buddha seems like some faraway, distant kind of magical, super being who can do all these things, nothing to do with me. And the only thing that Buddha can do for me is help me. Therefore, I go for refuge to the Buddha. But that's wrong. You know, that is wrong. He says here, after years of study, someone said that I was at a conference once, and someone said, you know, the quality of the Buddha, that of being able to speak to limitless sentient beings in limitless languages at the same time and be understood by all of them. And they said, well, come on, you know. But I think Buddhism is based on the path of cause and effect, you know, cause and effect. And cause and effect is absolutely, if you look at it, limitless. You know, if you plant one seed, you get one flower. If you plant 100 seeds, you get 100 flowers. If you plant daffodil seed, you get daffodil. Tulip, you get, you know, the cause is what is the causes is what's important. If the causes are there, the results will be there. And we haven't got time to go into all this, but I mean, I generally think it is possible that our mind at present, with its limited sort of perception and it's kind of chained up by sort of our concepts and beliefs in things that aren't really there at all, but appear to be there, is not capable of seeing what the possibilities are. It's only when we understand Buddha nature, which is very important, and that whole topic on its own, we understand Buddha nature, which essentially means, you know, the ability to break free from all this. Then anything's possible. I think anything is possible, you know. So when we hear about all these these supernatural beings and ghosts and hell beings and various spirits and people with strange, you know, sort of characteristics, I think if you understand that, if you look at life as being created by karma, then if the causes are there, the results will come about. If the causes, which are our own particular mind's attitudes, then I think that the results will be there. The result of that conviction is, the result of that conviction is an enthusiasm that will allow us to persevere year after year in methods of improving our mind. This transformation of our attitudes will bring huge benefits for ourselves and others. The next chapter is called The Essence of Religion, and on page 90 he says, in many places the thoughts and deeds of kindness and compassion for others, the very essence of religion, have been lost. There are Christians, for example, who merely go to church on Sundays. Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid. That's what we used to do. We called it Sunday school and go to church. We used to go to church, mainly because my mum and dad said I had to. No, the other day I was here. I heard a hymn on the TV, and it struck something in me, and it was one of my favorite hymns. It's called "Abide with Me." It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful hymn. And I remember I suddenly was cast back to a little child in church listening to this beautiful hymn. I think, you know, I think I'm a closet Christian, basically, and I haven't really sort of come out of the cupboard yet. There are Muslims who only make prayers and prostrations 5 times a day. Among Buddhists too, there are those for whom practice means performing rituals of daily recitation with eyebrows raised. You know when Tibetans they go, and the eyebrows go up, right? With eyebrows raised, reading scriptures, making offerings to statues, chanting prayers, reciting mantras with rosary in hand. And at such times, their eyes may be closed in apparent devotion. But when these people come into contact with certain external circumstances, coarse mental afflictions such as pride and anger arise immediately. Doing both recitations and in daily life, a detailed examination of the mind and the imprints of love and compassion are lacking. These Buddhists never go beyond thought and deed aimed at victory for self and defeat for others. There is this expression in Tibetan, Rang Gel Shen Pam. Rang means self, Gel means victory, Rang Gel, Shen means other, Pam means defeat. Rang Gel Shen Pam. It's a lot, and it's used a lot, and it's the kind of basic attitude that in any situation we search for our sort of success or victory first, and then others are secondary to our primary goal, which is, so he talks about that. So in the he says that, yeah. So when we say religious practice, it does not refer to pursuing the established norm in the sense of following customs and traditions, almost to the point of regarding prostrations, offerings, and so on as being of paramount importance. It is not these external activities, but the teachings and instructions of the religion that should become part of our daily life. There will be no improvement to mind by merely following the spiritual practices of outer behavior. Deity meditation, mantra recitation, practices involving the inner channels, winds, vital points, the blazing of the inner heat, consciousness transference, and other tantric practices can all be found in non-Buddhist traditions. However, the basis of Buddhism is kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, together with the meditation on the view of emptiness. And it is on that foundation that these attainments should be developed. If anyone listens to his Holiness these days, the teaching, it only talks about two things, bodhicitta and meditation on emptiness. These two things. When he goes to sort of tantra, even in tantric initiation, he skips over very quickly a lot of these bodhicitta, meditation on emptiness. These two things together. This is the source. Yeah. Whatever hardships we face, we all possess sugata essence, or that's Buddha nature. Sugata. Sugata garba. Yeah. And we should know that ultimately the attainment of Buddhahood is a certainty. This should give us the confidence that all difficulties can be overcome. Buddhists often pray with great devotion whenever some unwanted suffering arises, saying, I go for refuge. 3 jewels, please hear me. May this suffering disappear. But it is unlikely that the hardships will just vanish. Those who lack faith might, as a result, rebuke the 3 jewels, saying, well, I prayed to the 3 jewels, but they were of no help. So yes, he's saying that he says this a lot. This is primarily, I think, to a Tibetan audience, because there are Tibetans like that. I mean, my neighbors in Dharamsala, 2 wonderful husband and wife Tibetans, and we were talking one day, and we were talking about earthquakes. And I said, this is an earthquake region, very dangerous. He says, no, it's okay. Dalai Lama will protect us. And this is maybe the kind of attitude. Of course he would if he could. I mean, but it's unlikely. There be so many earthquakes in Dharamsala. I've been through quite a few. They're not pleasant. They did build these 4 stupas in the 4 directions as a kind of method of protecting the area from earthquakes. But it is an earthquake zone. In 1904, there was a huge earthquake, killed 90% of the Kangra district, of the whole area. If you go to the churchyard in Dharamsala, it's full, the gravestones, killed in the earthquake, killed in the earthquake, killed in the earthquake. Whole families, So an earthquake does not respect religious views, does it? It doesn't have a respect for the Dalai Lama or for the Buddha or for the 3 jewels. There's a coming together of tectonic plates. Boom, that's what happened. It's cause and effect. It's got nothing to do necessarily with the presence of holy beings. If it had been, then China would never invaded Tibet. Interesting that. Blind faith is the idea that making prayers is sufficient to produce a result that the Buddha will simply lead us with compassion. The statement of the Buddha, we ourselves are our own protector. I think I mentioned this last time. Rangni rangi gun. We are our rangi rangi gun. Gun is gombo, meaning protector or guide. You know, Mahakala is a guide. We are our own protector. Yeah, rangni gun. He says very important. He tells this story, lovely story. Once in the city of Patna, in the Indian state of Bihar, I attended the consecration of important new Buddhist temple that had been built. At the opening ceremony, the Bihar chief minister gave a speech in which he said he had great hopes that by the compassionate blessings of Bhagavan Buddha, Bihar would prosper. I replied that if the Buddha was able to bring prosperity to Bihar by way of his blessings, he would have done it by now. He said, instead, he said, continued, the blessings of the Buddha must come through the hand of the chief minister. This is wonderful. This is so much the Dalai Lama, you know, the hand, you know, the blessings of the Buddha are not going to come out of the sky like sort of drops of nectar and solve all problems. Absolutely no way. It is only through our efforts and our karmic efforts. If things are decided by karma, then it's only through our effort. There's another story, you may have heard it. There's a Christian version of this story. I mean, I'm sure you may have heard it. This guy, what was it? Oh, there was a big flood. There's a flood in a town, in a city, and the waters from the sea had flooded everywhere and was come up to the roof of the houses, and there was one man on top of the roof as the waters were right, and he was praying to God, please help me, please help me. And as he was doing that, this boat came, this boat with this guy coming in. He said, jump, come down, I'll save you. He says, no, no, God will save me. I'm waiting for God. God will save me. And the boat goes off, and then sometime later there's a larger motorboat came, and the motorboat drove, jump in, sir, please, come on, jump in, the waters are rising, you know, you must jump in. No, I'll be all right. I mean, I'm praying for God. God will save me. Okay, good luck. Then he went away. Then later a helicopter came, you know, boat, jump, grab hold of the ladder, come up quick now, there's water's right. No, I'll be all right. God will save me. So, you know, and then so the waters rose, and he died, and he went to heaven, and he saw God, and he said, God, you know, I prayed for you to help me. Why didn't you help me? He said, I did. I sent you a boat, I sent you a motorboat, and I sent you a helicopter. I think the more, it's the same story, right? You know, it's the same story. I'll let that story. Anyway, okay. This is the, he gives examples of, you know, about 15 or 20 people from various places in Tibet have requested that in the future, I give the Kala Chakra empowerment in Tibet. You know, he gives the Kala Chakra in Bodh Gaya. And when he does, people from Tibet are allowed, the Chinese allow them to come, and they take the Kala Chakra empowerment, and then they go back. He said about 15 or 20 people asked me, not a single one asked me to give teachings on engaging in bodhisattva deeds, you know, Shantideva's bodhicitta avatar, not a single one. I only want he said, you know, he goes on about how Tibetans always like empowerments. You know, when he gives the Kala Chakra, at the first day or two, when he's giving teachings, no one's there. But as soon as the empowerments start, they all come. In general, for Tibetans to hold that empowerments are special is simply a confused notion. Mostly they take no interest in talks and discussions about Buddhism or in any methods of profound study. Moreover, when Buddhist teachings and explanations are given, they are not inspired and often appear enthusiastic. This is wrong. So yeah, he often berates the Tibetans. I've heard it, and it's true. I'm sure it's true. But yeah. Anyway, I always say to Buddhists of the Himalayan tradition that Buddhism means to make full use of the human intellect in order to know a way of practice that will benefit the mind. And just saying, I go for refuge is not enough. Even if you have extraordinary faith in the Dharma, there is the risk that when you look for what it actually is, you will find nothing. I say this until I annoy them. Signs of attainment displayed by Buddhist practitioners who gain high realization from the practice, such as flying through the sky and traveling underground and so on, like those described in fables from the past, and which everyone agrees could be clearly seen and were verifiable, are not seen amongst Buddhist practitioners these days. However, there are those who have understood the Dharma of the Buddha and found faith in it. These people are broad-minded, with a good and kind attitude. They are of benefit to others in this life while being happy in themselves, and they live in a good life in a state of contentment. Finally, when they face death, they are able to peacefully bring their life to a close. That is practice. That's what practice means. It's not all this tantric flying through the sky and all that stuff. That's what, he's very clear on this. And I think it's true. They say, said in the text that a monk or a nun or any Buddhist practitioner who has good ethics, who keeps their vows, has good morality, their face shines. They have a kind of glow about them. And they glow, and I've seen that in certain, practitioners. They have a kind of glow. They don't say much. They don't go around ringing bells and vajras, but they have a kind of glow about them. We all know people like that. This is a sign of inner. It's the inner attainments manifesting on the outside. That is practice. Yeah. This illustrates a healthy and fitting achievement of study, contemplation, meditation, together with a confidence of understanding. We clearly see our examples of these people and continue to see them. So we're still on religion, a bit more, not much more. Religion in society. There are those who say that religion is an impediment to progress in society. I think I said this before. To understand why some might say this, we should first understand that we can conceive of two ways of fulfilling the desires and aims of human beings. Through a culture in which religion and secular are combined, and one in which there is only secular thinking. The first can be considered by looking at the Buddhist perspective in terms of the present life and future life. It is important to contemplate ways to accomplish long-term, long-lasting goals. This life is just a life of evident experience. Every day we experience things, they come and they go, and it's gone. We see it. Whereas the future lives, there are many things we can't see. We just don't know what's going to happen in the future. Comparing what we can and cannot see, that which is unseen entails a greater responsibility. If we can't, even like when we think about tomorrow, if something, we make preparations because we don't know what's going to happen. So, that's why the future life is regarded as being so much more important, because we don't know what it's going to be. If you believe in it, we don't know what it's going to be, what's going to happen. So we need to make preparation for it. Therefore, for someone who is a genuine practitioner of Buddhism, what happens in this life is not so significant, whereas the concern of future lives will be given greater significance. Because of that, some Buddhists might appear to remain unmoved by the developments and progress of this life. This could possibly contribute to the view that religion hampers the progress of society. Wonderful. I suppose it may have some truth he's saying, because religious people tend to want and spend their life in caves and doing meditation, whether they are Tibetans or whether they are for the forest tradition in Sri Lanka and Thailand. They don't seem to have much to do with sort of modern life. Some do, of course, but there is this kind of sort of cut off. I mean, after all, becoming a monk or a nun is actually a renunciation of worldly life so that one can concentrate more on spiritual practice. And for a Buddhist, spiritual practice means thinking beyond this life to future lives, especially if you're a bodhisattva. You want to think about, okay, I can't do much in this life because, time is short, but in future lives, I want to be, sort of beneficial and be born in a place where I can be of benefit to others. And so you put that intention, and that kind of takes you away from the things of this life, and you become, the word hermit traditionally means someone who lives alone, right? It's you're cut off, and so there is a tendency, to realize that. I remember once when we were in Dharamsala. I keep telling these Dharamsala stories. The BBC came to interview these Western Buddhists, and they kind of walked around with a camera and asking, but their sole intent was to present us as escapees from reality. we were running away from their world, of course, which is real. That they live in the real world, their real world, and we were just losing ourselves in a culture that wasn't even ours, a foreign culture, and we were all escapees, and we were fantasists. And there may be some truth in that. I'm sure some of us were. We did that. But it's the same thing, that somehow or other, because we're interested in religion, and we are somehow not part of the real world. And it appears like this is what His Holiness is saying. It may appear like that, but as they, as I think Tommy or someone said, if someone goes off to the cave to meditate, it should be like someone, like a family member, father or mother, there's some problem in the family that needs to be sorted out. So they go in another room. They go where there's some quiet. They don't go because they're running away from it. They're going to sort it out, and when they sort it out, they'll come back and deal with it. That's the attitude of going in caves. You don't go in caves because it's sort of it's certainly not a luxury escape, that's for sure. But you don't go in caves because you can't. The idea that, people become monks and nuns because they are frightened of, family life or something like that, and they're kind of running away. There may be some like that. I'm sure there are, but we should, try and see the positive view of that. We all do that, don't we? We all sometimes want a bit of quiet to work things out. You can't sort things out when there's a lot of noise going on. I can't anyway. So, yeah. Oh, 4:30. 4:30. So, yeah. Also, he talks about, however, as an antidote, as an opposite to this, some Buddhists think that, therefore, in our life, we should have no pleasure, no resource to modern sort of technological advancement, no sort of luxuries, no good hotel rooms, and none that we shouldn't have. But that's not true either. So he says, however, the following should be considered. The Buddha said that there are 4 excellences. Is that a word? Excellences for the fulfillment of our desires: religion, wealth, pleasure, and liberation. All 4 are necessary, not just religion, but wealth and pleasure. This is the Hindu thing, isn't it? In Hinduism, you'll see the same things. They're, the same things. Now, temporary happiness in the form of sensory pleasures is something excellence found in our high rebirth. While ultimate happiness is the excellence of freedom from suffering. The causes needed to fulfill the excellence of a good rebirth are wealth and possessions. Right? If you have a good rebirth and you are sort of, born into a wealthy family, then you make use of the wealth and the possessions. The causes needed to bring about the ultimate and permanent freedom is religious practice, as epitomized by the three trainings. Therefore, the injunction, give up this life in Buddhism, should be understood as meaning not to become one-sidedly attached to this life, but it also does not mean that we should abandon the good things of this life. This balance, right? We shouldn't sort of think that we have to sort of go off and, wear some hair shirt. A hair shirt? That's a Christian thing, isn't it? And beat ourselves metaphorically or with some kind of whip of renunciation while sort of looking down upon those who wallow in samsaric pleasure with just a little bit of jealousy. And we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that because, in Lamrim, Jesongkapa, he talks about, in order to sort of get a new future life as human, it's not just enough to be a human. We should have power. We should have wealth. We should have freedom, and we should have opportunity and leisure. These things require a good birth, maybe with some degree of wealth and a good family. Because for reasons, if we are born in some lowly family with lots of suffering and servitude, we can't be of benefit. So he's saying we've got this balance, between sort of having a good life but at the same time not being attached to it. Although a good rebirth, epitomized by the human form, is only a temporary happiness, it is set forth as something to be achieved. This is because the attainment of the permanent happiness of liberation is gained by way of a good rebirth. That's what I just said. Therefore, the high rebirth of a human form, together with all its associated excellence, is our important goals in the foundation of liberation. So there you go. We shouldn't be austere ascetics. It's okay. I mean, His Holiness was asked that once by somebody. They asked, well, how come when you travel around, you always stay in the best hotels? You're a monk. And he said something like this. I can't remember the exact words. He said, well, these are sort of conveniences for me who, makes my life easier so that I can not tired and I'm not exhausted and I can deliver teachings in a much better way. So interesting, isn't it? That, we like to criticize people who take private jets and travel in luxury, Maybe they're doing so because if their goal is beneficial to benefit society, maybe it's okay. I don't know. It's just worth. There's so much criticism in the world these days. Anything anyone does is criticized. Politicians are criticized, whatever they do. And maybe we shouldn't be so critical. The Buddha said that ordained monastics must avoid the extreme of sensory pleasure and the extreme of austerity and hardship in their lifestyles. The first of these, excessive indulgence in sensory pleasures, can become a cause for the weakening of one's merit and therefore should be abandoned. If you're totally lost in sort of pleasure and running around town and sort of luxury food, then you become consumed with all this and you don't have actually much opportunity to sort of gather merit. This applies not only to male and female monastics, but to anyone who practices Dharma. Of course, we have the right to enjoy our individual and necessary provisions of life, but the rich and poor are alike in the size of their stomachs. This is right here. Rich man and a poor man, or rich woman and a rich woman, their stomachs are the same. So, he's saying that. Therefore, these things should be enjoyed in moderation. Otherwise, indulging without contentment in the pleasures of food, clothing, home, and so on is the mistake of never being satisfied and is a basis for the growth of unhappiness. Yeah. The extreme of austerity and hardship is pursued by some in the Hindu traditions who claim that unvirtuous deeds and obstructions will be cleansed by severe ascetic practices. There is that certain belief. I think even us, we have that, don't we? Sometimes I read about people who do something wrong, and therefore they feel they have to be punished. So they self-punish. Maybe they undergo some kind of ascetic form, lifestyle. People shave their head, as if somehow some kind of ascetic sort of a treatment on themselves will free them from whatever they did in the past. I think I've seen that in our life. It's interesting, isn't it? That somehow we feel we have to punish ourselves because we did something wrong. But the past is the past. It's gone, It's gone. Yeah. It's gone. Yeah. As has the time. Yeah. Anyway, so I just want to finish off the bit on religion, then we can. It's true. What's true? Oh, yeah. I usually say the following. Now, he's speaking to Tibetans here. Whether we Tibetans are in Tibet, India, or elsewhere, we have to maintain a virtuous community of monastics. We are happy when the numbers are high and work to ensure that the monastic community is of good quality, which is a cause for rejoicing. Some might argue that we must ever increase the number of monks and nuns without paying much attention to the quality of those monastics. However, I do not see any need for having many people living in celibacy, yet as though they were householders. Without any of the higher qualities, this is on page 99, without any of the qualities of being able to adhere to the doctrine of insight through teaching and practice. When monasteries and labrang are at fault, labrang is where the tulkus live, in the way they conduct themselves, they will fail to provide proper dharma and monastic discipline. We will have let slip the mooring rope. This is an expression in Tibetan, a rope that ties a boat to the sea, to the land. It's called the mooring rope. If you cut that rope, the boat it gets lost. We will let slip the mooring rope we have held on to since the times of our great forefathers, and the necessary connection to the Buddha's teachings will be lost. His Holiness is a combination of strictness and yet open-mindedness. He's very open-minded, but he's strict too. He's very strict about monastics. And once in a teaching, there was this young monk, poor kid, and he wasn't wearing the robe. I think he had a t-shirt on instead, and his Holiness said, "Get out," and he threw him out. He was so strict with him, the Vinaya, the monastic discipline is rigid, doesn't allow for much, So he's very strict. He can be very strict with that. No. On the other hand, he's very open-minded. But when it comes to Vinaya, it's different because he says the Vinaya cannot be changed by anybody. No one has Dalai Lama have no power to change Vinaya. Nobody, none of the monks because it was made by the Buddha. We can relax certain rules, but you should know, the 256 rules of a monastic. Some of them, like you can't handle money, you can't touch fire. These things are still there, but they're not followed because obviously times have dictated. But it's not to say that they are abandoned. They're still there, but they're not observed. Eating after lunch. That's I don't know. I don't know any Tibetan monk who doesn't have dinner. There's sometimes a big tukpa, momo. But they shouldn't do it. I mean, it's strict, but hey, well. Do not judge, Gavin. Okay. It's true that some practices of some religious groups are backward looking, bringing sadness and despair to many people. However, to say that all religion hinders progress, this is referring back to, is simply the talk of those who do not understand the nature of religion. By first understanding a religious tradition thoroughly, then presenting sound arguments backed by reason in order to present a critique, only by then can one bring about a discussion in which scholars are beautiful in the presence of scholars. There's a saying in Tibetan, it's Kebanana, Keba nona, keba ze. Keba nona, keba ze. Kepa means scholar. Kepa nong ne. Kepa nong ne, nong inside when the are scholars. Kepa ze. Kepa scholar. Ze means beautiful. Keba nona, keba ze. Scholars in the scholars not right. Wise people in the presence of the wise are beautiful. It's interesting. This means something that often, a wise person is not necessarily appreciated, recognized in those who do not have the sort of level of wisdom that they have. They're often, Sakya Pandita says, these days, yeah, people would rather look at the organ grinder with his monkey than listen to a scholar. And this was in 12th century. So, so Kebanana, Kebadze means that only others wise can recognize the wise, And so when we criticize religious traditions, we should be careful of realize that maybe it's our own inability to be wise enough to be in the company of the wise, and therefore to appreciate the beauty and the sort of purity of the wise. It's that kind of thing. So he's presenting these both views. He said, of course you can criticize religion, of course you can, but only with the right amount of reasoning and thought and research. Then you can criticize. Otherwise, it's just sort of this. Yeah. So the next section is called the responsibility of society. And not much in there. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I think I'm not going to read. It kind of morphs into sort of, yeah. He talks about, that next section is called believers and non-believers. When it comes to religion, there are believers, non-believers, and those who are indifferent. So believers, he says, well, the human population will soon reach 8 billion. One estimation states that Christianity has 2.4 billion followers. Islam has 1.8 billion. And Hinduism has 1.2 billion. Those religious followers. Those who do not believe in religion and protest against it include communists. I think this maybe said some time ago, this particular teaching. A section of the scientific community, and those who dislike the activities of some religious group. For such people, to achieve happiness and to alleviate suffering, religion will be of no help. Moreover, they regard religion as ruinous and a cause of problems. In order to arouse opposition and resentment, they say such things as religion is poison. This, of course, was what Mao Zedong said to him in 1956 when he went to China. And Mao Zedong said to him, oh, you're a good man. You have an interest in science. Very good, yeah. But religion is poison. Mao Zedong, and he often quotes this, religion is poison. Maybe, and I'm sure it can be, can't it? Yeah, as we can see today. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. And then finally, he talks about, we have a universal responsibility to implement certain practices and I have urged members of other religious traditions to do so. There are 4 main ways of carrying out this universal responsibility. 1, in the past, there was not much connection between the world religions, and by not knowing the facts about other religions, there arose all kinds of prejudice, which resulted in conflict. Therefore, to learn about areas of agreement and disagreement between individual religions, there should be doctrinal exchanges through discussion, in order to gain better understanding. We should look for ways to embrace what is good in each religion. 2, we should encourage friendship between religions, practitioners, and hold discussions. 3, as far as possible, in keeping with individual meditations and practices, the leaders and devotees of various religions should pray together. That's good, isn't it? Pray together. In cases where it's not possible to chant together, the participants, united in altruistic motivation, should gather together and engage in silent meditation on a particular topic. I think that's fantastic. If only, the sort of religious traditions in the Middle East get together and do that. Can you imagine that happening? I'm sure it does happen. Maybe the Jews and Muslims maybe get together in one area and pray together. Protestants and Catholics, coming together. I can't see it happening, I know, because the Catholics believe in Virgin Mary, and they believe in the sort of the dissolving of sins through penance, and I don't know. I'm talking out of but anyway, it's yeah, getting together and there should be 4. There should be visits to the places of worship of different religions, and through learning their history, we should rejoice, pay proper respect, and exchange offerings. Now, on this word respect, he said, faith and respect can be differentiated. Respect, as taught in Buddhist texts, means to think of the kindness of that particular object or person and develop a sense of humility and esteem. So respect means example for your parents, or for your teachers, or for those who have done good. You think about their kindness, how kind they've been to you, and you, in front of them, you have humility. You don't stand up to them. You have humility, and you esteem. You have great respect and reverence. That is respect. That's what respect means. It's not that kind of respect, the way the word is used these days. Hey, hey man, you disrespected me, and not that kind of respect. This is genuine respect, almost like not devotion, but yeah, respect. Good see. Likewise, by knowing the kindness of other religions that do so much good for so many people, respect should be held as holding them in high honor and regard without aversion or desire. That's respect. Now, faith, in Tibetan, faith is a state of mind, right, that takes the form of holding the religious tradition you believe in and its objects of devotion alone as being trustworthy objects, and actively holding them as objects of refuge is the direct antidote of a lack of faith. So that is faith in the 3 jewels, means to hold them as being the sole objects to follow, and the Dharma, the sole practices and teachings to follow, and not to follow any other tradition. That is your faith. That is Deppa. That is faith. Therefore, he says, toward religions that are not one's place of refuge, we have respect, but not faith. So I think that's important, to differentiate between respect and faith here. Because the problem is that these days, the word faith with a capital F sometimes means a religion. We talk about the Christian faith and but the word here, faith, Deba, the word Deba is very much connected with the word to like, to want. It means to. It's not just. There are 3 types of faith, which he talks about here. 3 types of faith, but they involve a kind of loving mind, a mind that is sort of devoted. It's you're devoted to, yeah. So I'll just read that and I think we'll finish. The Buddhist scriptures talk about 3 kinds of faith: pure faith, trust or belief, and longing faith, right? So, what is pure faith? You see the wonderful qualities of the three jewels and so on, and a purity arises in the mind, through which the mind becomes clear and free of troubles, thus making it suitable for the development of the qualities of insight. This kind of faith is like compared to pure water that has no sort of impurities. It's pure. This kind of faith is a purity of mind. Dagyab. It's a faith that is untroubled by free of troubles. It's untroubled. Interesting word that. It's untroubled. It's not murky. It has even blind faith. Now, I remember once when I was in a monastery in France with Jado Rinpoche, and we were watching the Gregorian chants by the monks, Christian monks. And there was one monk in particular, we couldn't take our eyes, and he was so full of, his face was so indicative of so much love and belief and devotion. He always had tears, That's faith. That kind of faith, that kind of joy. Yeah, this kind of faith is a joyous faith. It's sometimes translated as joyous faith. The word dhamma has this meaning of pure, but it also means joyous. So this kind of faith, it's a very interesting, and I think it's important that we understand that, that it's not just sort of some kind of I believe. It's not that. It's not that. It's just that you see the qualities. It's like falling in love, I guess. You fall in love, and then, the person you fall in love with, you have so much. I mean, love is joyous, and you see these qualities. How long those qualities last, of course, is another question. But at the beginning, it's you see these qualities, and there's a joy. It's called Dagyab. It's the first faith. Okay, yeah. The second one, which is called belief or trust. Seeing the reasons behind the presentations on cause and effect in the teachings of the Buddha, as well as reasons for the existence of past and future lives and so on, there's a certainty. This is faith of belief or trust, and it's very important that this belief or trust is based upon reasons and evidence and experience. It's not blind. So when they say blind faith, it's this second one. This is trust, but it's not a sort of blind faith. And it's differentiated from the first one because it is based upon reasoning. It believes in the Buddha. There are many things about what the Buddha is teaching. It's impossible to prove. Some people say that this deity has got 36 hands, and this hand there's an axe, but in another tanka it's not carrying an axe, and you can't prove any of this stuff. You can't prove the nature of all these different deities. You can't prove even sort of the various sort of realms of future rebirth, but you can prove the main teachings of the Buddha, which are the four truths and the two truths. These are the main things. And therefore, if you know that they are true, then you tend to believe everything else. It's like a person. If you know a person is basically a good, trustworthy person, even if they say things are a little bit off, you say, well, hang on a minute, he's such a good person, or she's such a good person. They must mean something else. Our basic trust is right. Sort of it contradicts the sort of little things that we can't see. So this is the second kind of, this is kind of basic. This is faith. In reliance upon such perfect reasoning, suffering and the causes of suffering are ascertained as that which is to be eradicated, and the cessation of suffering and the path are ascertained as that which is to be taken and developed. From that, one wishes to become enlightened Buddha, the result of proper practice of eradication. This is the third kind of faith. It's called longing faith. Longing faith. Longing faith is a yearning. You want to become a Buddha. You want to have the qualities of your teacher, of the Buddha. You want to. It's that faith. It's like having people have role models, don't they? And they want to become like these rare role models. There's a sort of a longing. So you have this longing faith of wanting to be like the Buddha, wanting to develop compassion, wanting these things. At the same time, you have complete sort of trust and belief that these people, the Buddha is said to be milua, which means he will not let you down. Again, that is something that's built upon reasoning. So you have this idea that the Buddha is reliable and will not let you down, right? And at the same time, you have a clarity and a purity of mind in which all these qualities can be developed. Those three, if you have all those three levels of faith at one time in your mind, that's wow, that's something else. That is really, yeah. Ah, how are you doing? Anyone want to say anything? Please say something. If you have anything to ask, I mean, that's basically it when it comes to religion. The next is science. And then that's a whole different kettle of fish, as we say in England. And then after that comes a lot of basic teachings, which I'm not going to go over because you all know the basic teachings of Buddhism, but there is a section on Tantra, which I'd like to go through because I think Tantra is very important and some misunderstandings about Tantra. And then after that, again, more teachings. And then finally, there is this whole section on famous women in Tibetan Buddhism, which is 150 of them, and I like to go through them. Not all of them, we won't have time, but just briefly, we have a look at those because I think it's, as His Holiness says, something is lacking in Tibetan tradition where the women have been airbrushed out, and it's important that this is and that's it really. So, hello. Oh, good. Look at all these people. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Gavin, may I ask something?
Yes, of course. Who? Yes, please. Sorry.
You had mentioned His Holiness. He always emphasizes these days bodhicitta and emptiness, and he uses the image of the moon disk and the vajra.
Yeah.
I was wondering, does that come from Vajrayana, or is there a different kind of teaching on that, like in the sutras?
Yeah, this is something new that he had in the past few years. He's brought up this called, what's it? It has a name, doesn't it?
All-encompassing yoga mind.
The all-encompassing. Yeah, it's something new that he has. He regularly gives this now. Where does it? I don't know where it comes. I've been meaning to find out where it comes from actually, because I don't know much about it. I will ask Tenzin Sebak, the Dalai Lama's translator. We're good friends, and I'll ask him because I want to know the answer to that question.
Okay,
But yes,
thank you.
yeah. But I mean, it's interesting because sorry.
I was just saying thank you for asking.
Yeah, because I think a whole idea of representing states of mind through metaphorical illustrations such as Vajra and moon disk is very much a tantric thing. And although it's not necessarily highest yoga tantra, any kind of visualization where you represent or you replace something which is mundane, such as your heart or your body, with something that is divine, is a tantric practice in sense, because what it does, if it's done properly, it unites the two methods and wisdom, compassion and emptiness. You do it through bodhicitta motivation, but at the same time, you should be able to understand that it is able to be transformed because of the power of emptiness. I mean, he talks a lot about emptiness in this book. I don't know whether we'll have time to do it, but yes, we will. In Tantra, in Tantra, the union of method and wisdom is inseparable, and I think that it's very, meditating on things in your heart is okay if you could do it. But I remember one Lama telling me you should be careful when you meditate on stuff in your heart if you're not comfortable with it, because you could be careful. It can cause some problems. I can hear myself talking. Um, you know, you should be careful with this, but yeah. Okay. Andy,
Yes, I'd like to ask, in aligned with the all-encompassing yoga mind, if you know the meaning of the mantra Om Sarva Yoga Chitta Upatayami. I could not find the verb of the Upatayami, and I don't know if it's
Om Sarva Yoga. Then what? Om Sarva Yoga.
Om Sarva Yoga Chitta Upadayami.
Upatayami. Yes, I don't know. Upatayami. Sarva Yoga. So it probably means all encompassing. Yongso. I know Tibetan Yongso.
Oh,
Om Saba Yoga. Oh no. Saba is all encompassing. Saba. Yeah. Saba. Saba is all encompassing.
Yeah.
Saba Yoga. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will make an effort to find out before we meet again.
Okay.
Ask me
Great.
something I know. I can.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is Kepa Nangla, Kepa Ze.
Yeah.
What is who said that? Is that is
It's a Tibetan saying. I don't
okay.
Tibetans know. Kebanana, Kebaz. It's beautiful. It's really so true.
Yes.
Yeah. Shakya Pandita said, I think, when he talked in Shakya Pandita wrote these sort of little, what are they called? They're saying aphorisms or something.
Yeah.
I mean, he says about, he said, these days we prefer the monkey, the organ grinder and his monkey, to the wise one, because we don't see anything in the wise, but we entertained by the, yeah. Zeh means beautiful, right? I mean,
Yes.
it doesn't mean beautiful necessarily face, but it means, yeah, if you listen to a piece of music, you say, oh, that's beautiful. It's that kind of beauty. That is true meaning of beauty. No, it's interesting. Yeah, it is very interesting that wisdom can be beautiful. If we tend to think it's all intelligent up here in the head, and oh, this guy knows a lot, but God, and some people are like that, I suppose, and they are, but true wisdom is beautiful. Amy, namaste. Kya hai? Tika. Oh, yeah. Good to see you, Amy. Good to see you. Anything else? Yeah. Any more? No. Are you all in New York? Is everyone there in New York? I can't believe that. No. Where are you, Snehi? Are you in New York, Snehi?
I actually am in New York.
Oh, you are in New York.
I am, but I know like Anna and some other people are not from New York.
Yeah, Joy is in Canada. Yeah. Where, Amy, you're in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to just say something from last time. And I was thinking that I was lucky, and I was there when His Holiness gave the teachings for the new millennium in Sarnath. And I thought, oh, this is wonderful, but it'll never come to pass. And I wish it would come to pass, but I don't see it happening with all the things in the world. And just
What will come to pass?
now, the teachings, the teachings that you're teaching now, the teachings of the new millennium, the ethics,
yeah.
and that this is out, and His Holiness has been teaching this for so many years now. It's really beginning to sink in, and it's having its people are listening, and I'm so grateful for that, but also amazed. And
yeah, I think I was thinking earlier on, there are some script. There's a scripture that says, many scriptures says, if you say this mantra once, you freed from the negativities of a million aeons, right? Or if you give you practice, people use this one. If you practice giving on the full moon or on special days, the merit of that giving is multiplied 1,000,000 times, right? So I thought, come on, you know, is that really so? And I thought, what is this? What's going on here? You know, and then I think what it is, it's a process. It's like, for example, when you say, "May all sentient beings be happy," you can say it, you know, once or twice or 100 times. I mean, how many sentient beings are actually made happy by that prayer? I mean, it's hard to say that you can point to anyone who's, you know, and if you visualize the world as a mandala, as a divine palace, the moment you come out of that meditation, it's gone back to its old way again, right? And I think all these things, all these sort of meditations, they are processes, you know. It takes time. If you start like this, then the more you do it, the more effect and the more it becomes sort of some reality. You know, there are 3 types of bodhisattva. There's the bodhisattva like the king, the bodhisattva like the shepherd, and the bodhisattva like the ferryman. You know these 3, right? Yeah. So the bodhisattva like the king is one who becomes a Buddha first, and then he will lead all living beings to enlightenment. The bodhisattva like the shepherd, like the shepherd puts the sheep in first and then goes home. So that bodhisattva prays that he or she will be able to lead all living beings to enlightenment first, and they will be the last one to attain enlightenment. And the ferryman is, because the ferryman, when he crosses the river with these passengers, he does it together. They're all together. He prays that they will attain enlightenment together. Apart from the first one, the second 2 are impossible. It can't happen. It's not possible that you will become, you'll be able to make all sentient beings, bring all sentient beings to enlightenment, and then you'll be the last ones who will close the door of samsara, and you'll be the last one. That's not going to happen. But it's still a valid practice because it actually strengthens your compassion. It's like that Kadampa master, maybe Geshe Potoa, as he was dying, you know. Now, he always said he wanted to be reborn in hell realms. He prayed to be reborn in the hell realms so that he could help beings there. But of course, when he is dying, he cried out and says, "Oh no, I see signs that I'm going to a pure realm." Of course, the very fact of praying to be reborn in the hell realms is a cause not to be reborn in hell. So I think these things that look so impossible, and you think, well, you know, what they have effect, but it's not quite sort of literally to be taken. So His Holiness talks about, yes, the new millennium and so forth, but we all do. We say Happy New Year, right? We say Happy New Year. What do you mean by that? You hope that the person you say is going to have a Happy New Year. Do you think that you're saying it has any effect on whether or not they're going to have a good year or not? I mean, if you do, well, great, but you might be exaggerating your powers a bit here. But we say it anyway. It doesn't matter. So I think it's I was thinking about it because I have problems with this, you know. I had people send me, "Oh, please donate, because if you donate on this day, your merit will be multiplied." And I'm thinking, no, it won't, you know. And so, but I think there's merit in that. I think, you know, there is definitely some kind of merit, but it's not to be taken literally. It's a kind of prayer. It's this way of development. Very interesting there about Buddhism, what's literal and what isn't literal, what's provisional.
But it seeped into what kind of hits me as you're teaching this, is that so much of this is seeping in to people's consciousness in a very, I mean, it's not changing the world. We still have more wars and whatever, but but maybe it will.
Yeah. Well, His Holiness has often said, he says, I have this responsibility. And he says, I've made a little bit of difference. And that's because over the 70 or 80 years or whatever, he goes out and he says the same things again and again. And if you listen to His Holiness now, he's saying the same things as he said 20 years ago. But it's this process. It's a process. Look at a mantra. You don't do a mantra once. You do it 108 times, right? Again and again and again and again and again. And this is the power of cause and effect and the power of gradually. It's like rubbing, like what's his name? Was it Asanga? Who saw the water dripping on the rock. And over the years, he noticed that each drop of water gradually wore the rock down. Gradually. Not one drop, but hundreds and thousands of drops have worn the rock away. It's that kind of, in the West where we want things instantly, but I think it's that kind of, yes, you're right, Amy. It is seeping in the word seeping is a very good word. Seeping, because it means slowly, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. It's 5:10 here. Nearly my dinner time. So I hope to continue on those dates, Nahi. I don't know who I wrote to now, but those in March, right?
Yes, yes. The in Saturday in March, yeah.
And Saturday's okay for you? Saturday's okay, or would you prefer
Yes.
Sunday?
Well, you said that you preferred Saturday, so let's stick with
I
Saturday.
do prefer it, but it's as I say, Sunday sometimes sort of time to go out, but I'm happy. You have some long-term teaching on Saturday, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we have a
Okay.
program that's running on Saturdays, but we can fit it
You can
in.
put the two together. Okay. Well, that's fine by me, but if you want to change it, just let me know.
Okay, I'll write you and then I'll let everybody else know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, have a lovely weekend. Stay warm. Put your thermals on and keep warm. Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you,
Thank
Sunny.
you, Gavin.
Thanks,
Thanks, Sunny.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sheila.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.